Welcome back to Sun, Sand, and Soul. Josh Tillman with David Haber, welcoming David Burstyn to the studio today. David, welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you here and learn a little bit more about what you are doing. And there's a lot of interesting things. In fact, I don't think we're going to probably fit the totality of it in one episode, but excited to get started. And for us to get started, want to hear a little bit about, you've got some interesting family history. I understand that your grandparents came here in the 70s, and that sort of kicked off the real estate wave for you also. I'd love to hear a little bit of that story.
So my grandparents migrated here. They went to Brooklyn. My grandfather was in the sweater. He started to work for a sweater factory and worked his way up and was able to buy out the sweater factory.
Is that kind of like schmata business?
It was the schmata business.
Thank you. For those in our audience that can't
big.
spell schmata, we will find a way to get
We'll put it on the screen.
Right.
So he ended up selling his business and wanted the warm weather. My father at the time was at University of Miami. They came down. They started to buy these apartment hotels that we were talking about a little while ago.
South Beach, Mid Beach,
South Beach, really South Beach.
Yeah,
the Ritz Plaza Hotel, the Blackstone Hotel, things like that. So you would see these elderly people on the on the terraces, and they would
remember those aluminum chairs with the plastic
yes.
that went across. Got hotter than blazes in the summer on those things.
So me as a little kid, that was kind of my childhood. I remember going to the pools and all that other good stuff. So my grandparents came down. My father got in the business with his brother, and they were in the hotel business, and it evolved. But it really started with those older, Miami Beach, South Beach hotels.
Efficiencies.
Yes, which is interesting because that's how I got in the condo conversion business. Because when I was in high school,
where'd you go to high school?
North Miami Beach Senior High School.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm a local. I was born in Mount Sinai Hospital, so I'm a real local, which is unusual.
Yeah.
And, there was a time when I was in high school, I interned for a big condo developer, one of which is, not to say the names, but who's still around today. Maybe you interviewed him.
Yes.
And they wanted to buy a building from my father. And I was in high school intern. And I'm like, don't sell the building. Let's do it ourselves. Let's figure it out. Because they were renovating these efficiencies with kitchens in them and stuff like that. And they would buy units for $10,000, $20,000 a key for a unit. And they would sell the units for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a key. And that's how I got into the business. By the time I was 21 years old, I did my first deal with Sammy Sosa, who's a baseball player.
That's correct.
Who was a big baseball player.
By the way, just for our audience.
I was going to say, that's kind of glossing over Sam. It wasn't just a baseball player.
It was right before he was like the home run king,
right.
But he signed his first big contract. And, when you're in the early 20s,
I can't imagine.
You think you know everything.
I can't imagine that. I'd love to be the fly on the wall of the first meeting with you, 21, with this famous baseball player pitching the idea that you're going to do these.
No pun intended.
Right. It's funny. The South Florida Business Journal actually did a story of it. It was called From Baseball Bucks to Condo Cash, something like that. And they said, what was the first meeting like with him?
So you must have a silver tongue to be able to do that.
Well, I got to ask, it's too good a story. So how did that connection happen? I mean, it wasn't like you were sitting around one day being like, who do I want to have as an investor on the Sammy Sosa?
So I was I was a pretty good networker back then, but I had a very good friend of mine who became very good friends with him. He tried to make the introduction, and he was involved also a little bit in the business. And that's how we started.
Was Sammy active in the business or
not really active?
Okay.
At the time he wanted to come down and hang out in Miami Beach. So this was an excuse. Because listen, if I was 21, I think he was maybe 25 or 26.
Oh, he was a young guy too then.
Right, two young guys, and you start selling these condos.
Watch out, women on South Beach. Yeah, with two young guys.
That was
with money.
The Clevelander. The Clevelander was the first bar I ever went to when I moved to Miami.
The Clevelander was definitely around back then, and South Beach was totally different back then. There was the Spot, I think, back then.
I remember
the Spot was a bar.
What was the News Cafe? News Cafe.
News Cafe was the big one.
That was a watching place.
Yep, on Ocean Drive. We used to go there all the time. And then they started to go with the nightclubs. You had like Liquid. That was the big one back then. And
did you ever go to Club Deuce?
I mean, I've been there. This is at that.
My son always says, "You want good cheap drinks? Go to Club Deuce."
That's how it was back then.
I said, "Yeah, but you don't want to be in Club Deuce after 1 o'clock in the morning, no matter what."
Is it still there?
I think it's still there.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So oh my God.
Yeah. So that's what I did back then.
You're a beach guy.
Yeah, I'm a real beach guy, and we would buy these, historic hotels. I used to really enjoy renovating these historic hotels.
Did you get involved in the construction and overseeing it all? And
yep. Kobe Karp. That's how I met Kobe Karp many years ago.
My former neighbor, friend, guy I unfortunately have to deal with on the other side of cases. Not Not anything bad about Kobe, just that's part of the
We use Kobe
business.
on our development side quite a bit right now. We have a lot of, thousands of units for affordable housing that we're doing right now. And
it's incredible how his firm
yeah.
really is the go-to firm in South Florida for so many developers.
Absolutely. Well, I know him I know him, Nancy, I know the whole family for a long time. He's great.
So David, how did those early days inform where you are today, which obviously we'll get to, but I mean, what kind of formative experiences? I mean, obviously everything was a learning curve, I'm sure back then.
Yeah. But
what do you still carry with you today that you feel like that I learned that when I was 20?
So I definitely learned, about private money back then, because I used to borrow. I couldn't go to a bank when I was 20 years old. So I'd borrow money from a private lender. So I thought that was a pretty wow, how does this happen? And I thought, you'd borrow money at 11 or 12 or even 13 back then. And when I realized that you could leverage the returns a couple of years later, I was like, wow, this is incredible.
I can make money on somebody else's money.
Right. And then you go to the bank.
So explain to our viewers, listeners, what leveraging your money means.
Leveraging money means if you lend somebody, example, $1 million, and a bank puts up $500,000, and you're getting 10% interest from the borrower, and you're paying a bank 5 or 6, there's that spread and creates an arbitrage. So it juices up your return. And in our business, even on the development side, if you build a development cash, it probably won't pencil out too good. But if you build with a juiced return, that's how we make a lot of these deals work.
So on that note, you are probably most known, maybe being at Winston, Redwood Development Company, but you're also a lender at this stage.
So Winston really is the brand on the lending side. It's really become like the niche private capital provider, I'd say, in South Florida. We've done a lot of big loans. We just got paid off on a loan. It's funny because David probably knows a lot of these bigger clients, but we just got paid off on a $38 million loan in Manalapan. We did a deal.
Are these single family residences?
Yeah. So typically like a deal like that, it was
luxury homes.
It's an ultra luxury home spec. It was 95% completed. The developer bought it out of a foreclosure with some rights. And we came in and we loaned a value that we felt was appropriate. They sold the house. We got paid back. Everyone's happy. We've done some other crazy stuff like the lot next to Jeff Bezos at 9 Indian Creek. I think he may own the lot now, or someone connected to him may own the lot. People thought that we were crazy. We loaned $32 million when we did the loan. The lot sold for $105 million. Can you imagine buying
flat lot?
It's a flat lot. Can you imagine buying a piece of land right now next to Bezos' lot for 32?
So my question to you is, when you were younger, and even let's just say pre-COVID, could you ever imagined the prices of land on Miami Beach, Indian Creek, Manalapan, Palm Beach, with these
never like
uber wealthy people coming from all over the world and the Northeast and California, and just dropping down cash $100 million? Is that something that was even on your radar?
I don't think any of us imagined it. I think that, the big thing with Miami, especially during the condo bust, it was always a seasonal place. And now it's more of a year-round place, because for the first time, really, you're getting this job creation at levels across the board. And we never had that before. And now what you really have is, in this ultra niche market, is uber wealthy people, billionaire after billionaire. And everyone forgets, when you have a billionaire, they're bringing
10 workers.
10 workers that are worth $100 million a piece. And then, it just
it creates Citadel Capital, right?
Right. It creates an economy.
But here's the problem that we talk about with a lot of our guests that I want to ask you about. And that is not just affordable housing, but workforce housing. The articles are coming out in the newspaper and on TV about how it's so unaffordable in South Florida, and that the workforce people have to leave because they can't handle the 1.5-hour drive from Homestead or Pembroke Pines to where their employers are in Dade, Broward, or Palm Beach County. And homes and condos are so unaffordable for them, and rental apartments have gone through the roof in terms of pricing. How do you see us fixing this problem? We've asked it to Mayor Cava. We've asked it to Mayor Weinberg, who had the Heroes Housing Program. What do you see as the fix?
So we're proud to say that we're trying to be part of the fix, because on our Redwood development side, we have a lot of site control, over 5,000 units that we're doing affordable tax credit housing. So that's one, solution. It's not one size fits all, because then if you're a teacher or if you're a nurse and you have, 3, 4 kids, it's hard out there. So they've come up with other things like Live Local to mitigate or abate the real estate tax if you build a new development. So they're giving a lot of incentives. Interest rates have gone much higher, recent, even though it was coming down a little bit. But not having the real estate tax is a major factor to pencil in a deal.
So you think the public-private partnerships are crucial, even though it's not one size fits all. You have to work with government
absolutely
to try to find a way to help solve their problems,
yes,
community problems, but it has to pencil out for you.
And yet you need every resource available to make these deals pencil out. On the affordable side, I think we have a project where you're getting 3 or 4 layers in the stack, whether it be mission-based pricing, no real estate taxes, where the city and the CRA contribute, the state, the county. It's so many different levels of participation. And Mayor Cava has been great.
There's a big issue for her.
Yeah. Commissioner Bastian in our district's been great. I think that at the end of the Mayor DeSolme has been great. All of these people, wherever you're building, even at City of Miami, they understand there's a major problem, and they understand that it's not just throwing money at the problem. It's creating a building that a family can move in at a reduced rent.
And I would argue government cannot do this as a public entity. Of course, private enterprise always can produce a better product at a cheaper price
100%.
And a better quality. But the public-private partnership allows you to be able to pencil it out so you can say, okay, I may not make as much money, but I'm going to make money and I'm doing something good for the community and I'm working with government, which I think government has to appreciate.
I can't tell you how many grand openings or, ribbon cuttings. It's great when you do the groundbreaking, but when you have a ribbon cutting and you have a family that just moved into, we have a lot of 4-bedroom townhomes some of them are subsidized and they're brand new. And it gives a family a chance to move into a unit that, with granite countertops and a backyard. And the mother is, in tears because they never thought that they'd be able to give their family.
That's got to feel good.
Oh, it feels great. We have videos, you can watch the video over and over because you're making a change and you're making a very positive change to somebody's life.
David, do you feel like you're doing something different? I mean, when you talk about what Redwood's doing, do you feel like you are taking a substantively different approach, or are you following an approach that you feel like is time tested and therefore you're reproducing it but have a different orientation to scale?
It's a very competitive marketplace, as you know, because I know you're in the similar business as it is. It's very competitive. I think when you're a little smaller, you can have your niche product, because we haven't gone the typical route for funding sources, and we've been very successful.
Do you see different deals, you think, because of that size issue?
I think once you hit the first big deal, I think that you get invited to participate with other RFPs, requests for proposals with the municipalities. And it's it's very competitive, and sometimes you win, and most times you lose. But when you hit it, it's a very special feeling because you're in business with the community. I can't tell you how many, you got to have community meetings, and you really got to give them what they want. Little Haiti, for example, there was tons of gentrification going on, and a lot of these people had to move into other areas. And if the municipalities and the districts don't do something about it, they know that these people are going to keep pushing to the next community, next area. And I think that we're doing something about it. The first building that we're building we're doing a big project called Claude Pepper Park. It's a 29-acre site. Half of it's a park. The other is 8 buildings. Kobe was the design architect. We did an amazing plan. We have Miami Jewish Health.
Is that in Little Haiti?
It's actually in the city of North Miami, 135th Street, 5 blocks west of I-95.
That's a great area.
Yeah, it's great. And Kobe came up with the design, 8 buildings, 2 big parking garages with 140,000 feet of retail.
Wow.
We have a medical center that's going to be run by Miami Jewish Health coming in there, a grocery store. I wish I could say the name, but a communication store that we all know. But it's, this is an area that, they have housing, but now they need
new housing.
They need new housing, and it's going to prevent gentrification. Because the first one's is senior citizen. Grandma's in the older housing, and maybe the kids want to renovate the house. Where's grandma going to go?
Right.
So this is a place that they could go, within a mile, 2 miles, and grandma can move out of the house, live for, if they're 30% AMI, $700-800 a month, and they get a brand new 1-bedroom unit that the husband and wife can live in. And, they have supportive services downstairs. They have the park next door. It's a complete renovation of a park. And we're giving them something that, that we feel that we could be proud of.
And below Golden Glades interchange.
Yes.
So that people who do have to commute 4 blocks from I-95,
the bus route,
you are a lot closer if you're in Dade County. That's great.
I'm interested, David, also in the boutique orientation of Winston, because it's some of the words that are thrown around at white glove, right? I mean, it's sort of it calls to this idea of sort of a high level of service and customization. And as I hear it, I mean, your 2025 sounds like it was 400 million in lending from what's been published, and irrespective of that number, which is really impressive. How are you competing with institutional capital that way? I mean, it's obviously that's its own challenge, let alone gaining the kind of business traction you have.
So I think the advantage that we have on the institutions that do it are we can say yes very quickly. And in the real estate business, as you know, you could say yes, you could say no, but maybe suck.
Yeah, but I would say yes to Jeff Bezos.
Time is the greatest asset.
If he wanted to borrow money, I would tell Jeff Bezos, no problem. I'll give it to you tomorrow.
Right. Unfortunately, he wasn't the borrower,
right.
but there are plenty. Believe it or not, most of the people that come to us these days they're wealthy individuals. There's a liquidity issue.
So, but wait a minute. Our listeners and viewers are going to say, I don't understand this. You're going on Indian Creek or North Bay Road, and someone is either knocking down a house or has a flat lot. They're borrowing $20, $30, $40 million. They're going to have to then build a house on it. These people are uber wealthy. Why do they need your money?
Sometimes the developer who's going to build the spec house wants to go to us over a bank. It's,
so it's really not the ultimate purchaser.
We never lend to an end user. Okay. We only lend to business purpose, right? Okay. So typically, let's say a developer buys the house. They're not ready. They're going to rent the house for the year until they knock it down. But it's always a business purpose at the end of the day. And with the ultra luxury market right now that's exploded. I mean, if you just bought a house for $20 million,
you knock it down.
If you just leave it alone in the last 2 years, look what happened.
Right.
It's incredible what people do. And it's not about the price. What I see these developers, what they're doing, they're now buying based on location. And they'll spend the extra dollar, few dollars to get the right location.
It's all about location.
Because their attitude is, when it's built, it doesn't matter if it's $5 million more or less.
Right. If you have that view in that space,
they're going to spell it they're going to be able to sell that property for the.
I mean, look at the North Bay Road. What was it? $100 and some odd million they paid for Sunny.
And we're not even blinking. And we're not even blinking at it anymore. It's just around another $150 million house.
So Todd Glazer's building that house, and you saw.
Shout out to Todd.
Right. I don't know if you saw it was in the
yes. It was in the Post.
It's in the Post.
It's in the New York Post.
Right.
By the way,
that someone may be looking
at. The Bible.
By the way, the New York Post is a descendant of the oldest newspaper in the United States.
Okay.
Just so that you know that.
So we should take it as fact.
Right. Like I said,
well, the Republicans will, the Democrats won't.
Okay.
So, and David, you've used the word time a couple of times, and I got to believe that Winston probably, and everything that I've learned about it is compressing time, which to developers is everything, right? Deals close very, very quickly.
Very quick.
What does that sprint look like and feel like? I mean, I know it behind the scenes because of what I do, but I would love to, hear a little bit of sort of an aggregate of those war stories of saying, when that's that 10 or 15 days of sheer madness. Is it up all night on phone calls? Is it just moving pieces?
So we like closing large transactions because what we find is when we close this $38 million deal in Manalapan, we found out who the lawyers were for the for the sponsor. We paired them up with lawyers that knew each other. Maybe they all used to work together at Greenberg Traurig.
That's brilliant.
So there was a commonality. Everyone felt comfortable with each other. So people
better professional courtesy amongst them.
So if they had to call each other at 10 o'clock at night, it wasn't the worst thing in the world because they kind of all knew each other, and some of them were friends. Actually.
And they know how they both do business.
Yes,
as lawyers,
100%.
Meaning they know because many of them grew up as young lawyers together. Hey, he's never going to agree to change that clause. Yes. I'm never going to agree to change this clause. Let's not waste 2 weeks trying to fight back and forth. Cut right to the chase. Make the deal.
They cut the chase, and we like dealing with lawyers that get it. So what we've realized is when you do a higher loan, typically it's a more sophisticated sponsor. The lawyers know each other. It can happen very quick. We can close if title's ready and we could verify the title's clean. We can close in a matter of a few days.
How do you deal with appraisals? Not that the appraisals aren't coming through with the high numbers, because they are, but how do you even find appraisers to do it this quickly if you're going to close a loan in 10 or 15 days?
So we give appraisers obviously a lot of business. So it's like anything else, you put a rush on it, and sometimes they may
you get for what you pay for. If you want priority, you got to pay.
You got to pay instead of them working from 5, 6 o'clock, they're going to work overtime that day. If you're closing a $38 million residential loan, at the end of the day, you could afford to pay the appraiser overtime to get it done. Sometimes we'll do 2 appraisals just to cross check. But realistically, what I like to do is I call a handful of real estate brokers that are very big in the market. You probably know all of them.
Of course.
And I don't tell them that I'm reaching out, even though they're probably all talking to me.
Right.
David just called me, and I say, listen, on a bad day, what is this worth? On a good day, what's it worth? And I keep asking that. And I'll ask different, people from maybe different communities, different pockets, but like kind of know the area well, and I get a feeling okay. So if this goes bad, this is what it's worth on a bad day.
But you're a South Florida guy, so you have the. Let me ask you a question.
I got the pulse.
Have you ever done a deal where in your gut you said, "I don't think so," and then you did it anyway?
Not on the lending side. Not on the lending side.
What about on the development side?
So I used to flip a lot of houses, and that's how I've gotten caught a couple of times, and it's not a good feeling. So I think it's made me a better lender. Having made those mistakes on the development side.
And so for those young real estate people out there, would you say trusting your gut is key?
I trust my gut even till today, but trusting, your gut, it comes with experience, and you also have to talk to a lot of people.
So you got to get other opinions.
Always.
Okay, Lisa Haber, that's why I get 10 opinions before I do something.
Right.
It's
not that we're all smart or geniuses. We just probably have the right network to talk to when you're talking to other smart people. And sometimes people may say you're crazy, and you have to have an open mind and listen to those people and see and you can come up with a decision.
So David, you just said that being a developer has made you a better lender. Has being a lender made you a better developer?
Yes. And I think
how so?
Because I think that when, I went through the recession, as you know, and I did a lot of workouts amicably. It was not easy to do. And you learn what credit is looking for and what workout guys are looking for. And after the recession, I actually would get hired as a consultant a lot. Like banks would say, hey, listen, before you go to litigation, why don't you talk to this guy, David? Because he was able to work out his problems. Maybe he could talk your language. By the way,
that's the ultimate compliment for a professional. When it happens the same thing. I sue someone.
Right.
And then the next deal that comes around, they're like, I want that guy.
Right.
Doesn't that feel good when the banks call you and say, I want you to consult?
We did a great job. And a lot of the banks that we work with today, a lot of the loan officers, saw me go through the recession and saw me, doing workouts. And, so when they go to their credit person and say, listen, we've seen this guy perform on a good day. Right. But we've also seen him perform on a bad day.
Right.
So we kind of know what's going to happen here.
And sometimes the performance on the bad day is the more telling performance.
It's always the more telling performance.
Right. This guy, this person's going to do the right thing.
Right.
At the end
and that's critical in business, is knowing who you're doing business with 100%. And are they going to do the right thing? I believe whether you're a borrower, a developer, a contractor, or an ultimate purchaser, knowing the people you're doing business with and their moral character is probably the most important thing.
It's more than 50% of the equation right there.
Right.
Just that first question, is this, because even last night I got asked is this person good, bad?
Right.
Is he,
it's the character, it's character underwriting.
Is he in the club or he's not in the club?
Right. It is underwriting. It is
underwriting character.
I haven't heard it mentioned that way, but it really is underwriting 100%. Character. And it's not about defamation or slander. It's just finding out
negative news,
how someone does business.
Sure.
Are they, for example, are they someone who is reasonable on giving in on certain things? Are they always going to fight just to fight? That, because the brain drain and the energy, there's so much business to be done that you look at certain people and you may say, I'm not going there. this is not for me.
Right. Someone told me a long time ago, certain people, they read every single word of the loan doc.
Right.
And then there's other people, that's probably someone who's going to litigate, right? But there's You pay the loan.
I don't want to say I don't want to say which of my clients is in that group,
right.
But yes, there are.
Right. And those are the people that it's going to overcomplicate, where really, if a bank's lending you money, just pay the bank on time every month, pay them back when you're supposed to, and it's not going to be a problem.
Right.
Really, that's what the loan documents say. Pay us back and we're all going to be friends at the end of the day.
And because I wade in this space, David, I know it's actually as much as it is, 80% of the economy in South Florida, it's actually a small space. I mean, everybody knows everybody. And so the idea that saying character is what ultimately is performance based is, a lot of people say, are they a good guy? Or, is this somebody I can trust?
Huge.
Yeah, it is huge. And you mentioned banks a couple of times. I got to ask, how does City National Bank work into this equation?
City National Bank is one of my go-to banks. We do a lot of business with them on the development side and also on the lending side. CEO George Gonzalez is a great guy. Know him for years at this point.
Speaking of character underwriting, right?
Yeah, he's a great guy, been supportive of their functions. And I go to their Aspen event every year in July, which is great because everyone from Miami, I think it's called Aspen 305 or something. They do it at the St. Regis and it's a great event. You bump it. You can network the whole year in 3 days. It's great. So I'm usually in California for the summer, but I'll fly in for 3 days just for that event. It's a great event.
Well, I have nothing bad to say about my client, City National Bank.
Okay.
Shout out to Hal Lewis.
Yeah, I think everyone uses City National Bank at some capacity.
All three of us sitting here have a very big relationship with City National Bank. So it was definitely a little bit of a feat. I'm winking at the camera.
And my uncle, former mayor of Miami Beach, Dr. Leonard Haber, was good friends with Leonard Abbas Sr.,
very nice,
who was the original owner and president of City National.
Talking about City National Bank, one of the points of interest for me is, can a bank like City National Bank, can these community banks stay community banks? Miami has grown so much. The region has grown so much. And it's a calling card for them. And I'm not saying they can't, but I'm curious from your perspective, because you've seen when you've been doing this since you were 20 years old in the 90s on Miami Beach, you've seen the evolution of our space. Is there still that sense of locality and connectivity despite the growth?
I think City National Bank is very successful because I think they do a very good job at making you feel that it's really a community-based bank.
And they have great lawyers.
They have great lawyers. They got the best developers. That have their homegrown developers. They know the space, and I think that they try and understand who their client is. Because they know them or the community knows them, and they can follow through on things that some banks maybe can't because they understand what the sponsor could do. And from Leonard Abbas was like that also. I mean, the stories that you hear with Leonard Abbas back in the day
talk about people with character.
Right. And this
good
is
good character.
Yes.
From his father to Leonard Abbas Jr. Just incredible people and great business people, but people of just absolutely top quality character.
And the word was back then that, he would lend to the person, the character, the person over the deal, because he believed in people. And I think that bankers, you have to have, we do the same thing. I mean, we want to know who we're lending to at the end of the day. The deal's great, but if you're going to lend somebody, even at 50, 60%, but the odds are it's going to go into litigation, probably not somebody I'm going to lend to at the end of the day.
Right.
Try to avoid the litigation. Even if someone runs into a problem and they say, hey, here's my cards, I want to work it out with you. That's who we want to deal with. By
the way, I see some of these deals where they end up in my office on litigation.
I'm sure.
And as an after the fact, and I know it's Monday morning quarterbacking, I scratch my head and go, how did you lend money to this person?
Right.
Didn't you see every bell and whistle that I'm looking at here? And of course, some of them are like, well, but it was such a great return. And I'm like, oh boy, what a mistake that was.
Right. Focus on the numbers.
We would rather lend less rate and go with the right deal, because if the money's chasing the deal at the end of the day, our expertise is we can close fast. You're going to sleep at night, white glove service, and we have a reputation. If you get the term sheet and you have to close in a certain time, you should feel comfortable.
What does white glove service really mean? I mean, when you say that, and I've seen it before, what does that really mean?
Well, when you deal with a bank, and I deal with a lot of banks, just to do a bank package these days, if I didn't have a staff working on my bank package.
Trust me, I know. I've taken out loans, and the documentation you have to submit won't even fit into an email. You have to do Dropbox after
Dropbox, and we're getting good service from the bank. So I can't even imagine if somebody is not doing the $50 million loan and you have to provide all of this documentation and then they ask follow-up questions. it could take, these days to close a loan fast. It's like probably 45 days is unheard of,
Right.
With us, that person that is bankable, and then maybe they just don't want to deal with doing, their back office is not as strong because they're doing one house. They don't have a back office shop, but they know how to do a couple of deals a year, and they don't want to deal with the headaches. They come to us. They're going to pay a little more than a bank, not a crazy amount, and they're going to close with us in a week or 2 weeks.
Right.
And then you're going to go and borrow against it with a bank and make the spread?
Yes, that's what I do. So we have it all worked out in the beginning. And, something to say about City National. City National sometimes is not the least expensive bank, but they execute.
And they're good for what they say they're going to do.
100, yes.
They don't.
So I tell everybody, I don't need to, fight for the last 25 basis points to the bank. If the bank needs the 25 basis points to make the deal work, but they tell me they're going to be there on closing day, and I'm going to go with that.
It's kind of like what I say about contractors. If you're going to push a contractor down to the point where they can't make money, you're going to end up with a bad job.
Yes.
You have to be willing to let people make their money in order for you to make your money. Because when you step on the neck of people, you're guaranteeing yourself a litigation.
Yes.
That's what I'll tell everybody that.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't over negotiate.
No.
Right. David, from a broader perspective, I'm interested because you are a lifer here, because you're that rare native. When do you feel like the wealth migration really started? I'm always curious in conversation when I talk to different people about this perspective of when do you feel like that changed? Some people say, look, it was, the pandemic accelerated it, but it was already happening. When do you feel like, if you had to sort of stick a pin in a calendar to say, this is really when we saw something substantively change?
Definitely with COVID. There were always, the handful of billionaires down here. They were, very entrenched in the community. But when it happened, then you start getting, the Ken Griffins of the world, and you get like Carl Icahn was a big one before that. But now what you're just seeing the wealth that's coming down here. I mean, you got Zuckerberg. I mean,
they're coming from California, Greenwich, and the Hamptons.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is, I was shocked when the California people started coming. But of course, with that new proposition of let's tax the billionaires, they're like, whoa.
Right. They said when Mamdani came in, it was going to be an influx. But I think a lot of the people already came.
Right.
And right around the same time, they had this tax in California. And now we're all seeing a lot of people from California come in, like Zuckerberg and the guy from Google, Brin, and all these other.
And so my favorite question is always then the why, because I mean it's sometimes I chuckle because it's like all of a sudden they discovered Florida. It's like it's been here the whole time, right? I mean the opportunity was obviously always here. The tax advantages were always
herd
here.
mentality,
right? Is it?
Do you think it's just herd mentality? Because I think when New York and California started being what I would call not business oriented, high tax, and really not producing much for what they're charging for, people started saying, this is crazy, that we're not even getting any value for this. The money is coming out of our pocket, but it's being wasted and it's just not worth it anymore.
It's interesting. You should put this on the podcast today with, have you heard of this guy, Spencer Pratt, who's running Republican?
Well, I got to admit, my wife actually briefed me on it, but yes, I've heard now.
So I knew who he was from the Hills, 20 years ago.
Right,
he said it was a character. You got to hear this guy talk now. It's incredible.
I've heard he's pretty impressive.
He's an impressive speaker, and I've just started to watch his videos.
LA mayor race.
LA mayor race. You have to watch his social media. Mamdani won, in my opinion, because of social media.
Sure,
he appealed
absolutely.
to the, and I think that this guy, Spencer Pratt, figured it out. His advertisements with AI and social media are the greatest things that I've ever seen. And he's basically appealing. His house burned down to the ground in the Palisades. He can't get it back up. He rented a
trailer, right?
A trailer.
I saw
He rented a trailer, and he keeps doing these AI videos, and he brings Star Wars in the mix, and how Carolyn Bass, he calls her like the last name, and he's bringing out all of the negative. And what Gavin Newsom is doing, it's pretty incredible what this guy's doing, to the point where I actually want to make a donation to his PAC or whatever you're allowed to do, because this guy's, I'm in the summer in California. I think it's California this summer. It's great.
Right.
What this guy's doing.
Let's put it back to Redwood a little bit, because I think, I've got a question for you that is maybe already answered by what you talked about in terms of community involvement, but you thousands of units in the pipeline. You've delivered a lot already. You could have stayed in luxury all day long, right? And you've got the chops for it. You've got the reputation for it. What drove you into that space?
So I've always, even when I did a lot of condo conversions, at that point, it was affordability for sale. So I started to do condo conversions for affordable housing, for low income. And the subsidy was available. But when the recession happened, you could not get a loan unless it was Fannie, Freddie, or FHA.
Right.
They didn't want to know from a condo, especially a condo conversion was a bad word.
They don't want to know from a condo now, I can tell you that.
Right, exactly. So what happened? So we had to pay the bills. We had to figure it out. So we reconverted these fractured condos back into apartment buildings. And we had to figure out what Section 8 was because these were lower buildings, but they were already renovated. So the people would come to the building, they would rent Section 8. They loved it. It was a product that they've never seen before. Granite countertops, the whole thing. I'm like, okay, this is interesting.
Just so that some of our viewers know, Section 8 housing is government subsidized housing for people of low income.
Correct. And sometimes, it's a post office worker or it's a school bus driver, a nurse we've seen, with 3-4 kids and grandma's in the house. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're just that they don't have a job. That's not what that means. It just means that they need the subsidy and they qualify. So we were doing a lot of that. And also at the time, you were able to buy these houses at the courthouse steps for nothing.
Right.
I think I bought a house in Overtown for $10,000.
Right.
And I think I sold it for $110,000. I thought I was smart. That house today is probably worth $700,000 to $1 million just in land.
Could have banked it. Yeah.
Wow. That's all you had to do. So I was buying houses at the courthouse steps. We'd renovate them and we'd flip them. And again, the buyers were extremely happy. We rented a bunch of them. Maybe we had 40, 50 houses being rented. But the problem was it was a big headache because you had a roof leak over here and it was just very
You got to build a service company on top of owning rentals. Right?
Correct. And we sold it, did well. And then we had an opportunity to buy a piece of land. And it was on the borderline of Opelika and North Miami. Mm-hmm. But it was, 10, 15 acres of land for a nominal amount. I'm like, I'm from here. You don't really see this very often. And one thing led to another. And the next thing you know, we built a townhome community that was subsidized.
Is that near Miami-Dade North?
It's 143rd Street, Northwest 17th Avenue.
Okay.
And that was the first community that we really did that had some type of affordability component. It got built during COVID. So when we projected the rents were going to be like, $2,500. The rents now with the subsidy is extremely high. And have a great partner, Brian Sidman, who in Redwood. And we said, look, are we going to do this as a one-off or we're going to, let's brand the company? And we were able to expand now. We have about 650 of these townhomes and over 5,000 units of site control that we're building with tax credits.
How many? I'm sorry.
I was going to ask if I was curious, would Redwood a nod to California life, or is that is there another story?
So he actually named it, so I have to ask him what's the backstory. But Redwood trees are beautiful; they're great. So I said, okay, that's a great name.
Sounds strong. It sounds right.
We stuck with the name.
Right.
How many people?
And we have good luck with our names. Winston and Redwood are great.
How large are both of your teams in terms of employees and leadership?
So I would say on the Redwood side, in-house, we have at least, 30, 40, probably over 40 employees. On the Winston side, we try and keep it lean and mean. We have 4 employees plus me. Okay. We outsource a lot. I've had businesses in the past where you have lots of employees and you don't make money.
Right.
So we outsource as much as we possibly can.
What is your thought process on how AI will be integrated into development and construction? I'm going to
jump ahead and say he's going to say how is it as opposed to how will it?
Right. It's I just started to play with it, in recent months, and it's incredible.
I mean, it's going to change construction.
I know it's changing law. All the lawyers are using it. But I did a test the other day, and I basically said, as a model, this is my business model. What happens in 3-4 years? And it basically showed me a model that was like 95% accurate. I
was going to say it's close. I do the same thing. I test it, and it's like you still got to comb it over. But you know what?
But versus doing it yourself,
right.
or hiring somebody to do it.
Analysts.
I
would feel bad if I were a financial analyst.
So what I think is going to happen though is let's say you have an underwriting team of 10. Now it's going to be 2.
Right.
And those 2 people are going to be checkers and fact checkers as opposed to the modelers. Mm-hmm. Because let's face it, humans make errors all the time too.
Sure.
So if you had a model and it was 95% accurate, in a day, you'd probably be pretty happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that thing just did that in 30 seconds is amazing.
Right. Yeah, it is incredible. It is incredible. Getting back to sort of Redwood and its orientation, I think we all know there's an affordability issue here. And I'm going to work in my favorite question, but I think more specific to Redwood and what you're doing is, if you could look at this market and fix one thing that you feel like would accelerate the affordability solution, either based on what you're doing or what you would imagine you need the community to rally around, what would that be?
The municipalities have to continue with the public-private partnerships, long-term land leases, where they're awarding land and allowing developers to build in some type of public-private partnership. Like I said, it's not just money. Money's not. But you need a little bit of participation from each sector. The non-for-profits get involved, the CRAs get involved, the state. If that continues to happen, and I think everyone is on the same page. I mean, the mayors are involved.
They have to be on the same page because otherwise we're going to have an implosion.
Yeah. If there was one thing that I could change, it would be the time to make it happen, because it's happening, but sometimes to line up these subsidies could take 2 to 3 years.
Right. The bottleneck is clearly not you and your orientation.
Well, government always works slower.
They all want it, and they're all willing to contribute to make it happen. The banks want it. But then, to line up the 5 subsidies, the 5 sources of the capital to make, to make the stack happen, it takes time. So I think if there's a way to streamline those processes, who knows, maybe AI is the answer to that also.
Well, and Bezos sort of alluded to that on stage with Mayor Suarez talking about permitting process in Miami, which I won't personally opine on. I've had my own experience there, but
me too.
But I think that issue is an interesting one, is to say, will government allow that? I mean, not in terms of risk with AI, but in terms of saying, but that's ours. That's how we still control.
Yeah, I think that the part where everyone's aligned, I think that part is there. You got, again, local, you got the state, the federal, they're all aligned. Everyone knows you need it. They just did this new, with the federal tax credits, they reduced it from a 50% to 25%, which means more projects qualify. I think that everyone is aligned, but if there's a way that they can make it quicker to get shovels in the ground, that will solve the problem that much quicker.
Right.
Can we go to rapid fire soon?
Soon. We're not quite there. He loves the rapid fire. This is his favorite part.
And those are not questions you've ever seen before.
Okay.
Trust me.
Actually, we did include those in the.
No.
Well, David's going to put you to the test. I think as we're wrapping up this piece of the conversation, kind of tying these two aspects together, of both, what's going on the capital and development side, what's going on the affordable housing side. Flash forward, it's 2030, 2031, it's 5 years from now. What do you think the shifts are going to be? If you were predicting right now, and clearly you've predicted some things very accurately in the past, what do you feel like is going to be the most substantive change over the next 5 years in this market?
I think, and I'm hoping there's going to be more rail and transit. With the Brightline, I think, was a game changer. Someone like me, I used to drive all the time. I really don't enjoy driving anymore. So if I have to go to the Heat game, because I live in Aventura. So if I'm going to the Heat game, I take the Brightline, and I think that they're putting, they're trying to get more and more infrastructure and incentives to build on the rail. So I think that will change things a lot.
And what do you feel like that does? When we talk about public transportation all the time on the show, and we know all the reasons that it's a benefit, but what do you think that substantively changes in this marketplace? Because look, I'm from up north, and public transportation means something completely different. I mean, here it's sort of like, well, if it goes there and, if it's available, what would that mean to South Florida?
Well, you would be able to, right now it's all about live, work, and play in the same, location.
Because you can't go anywhere.
Right.
That's a monstrous problem.
Right. So the fact that you can go from the Aventura Mall and then go to, near Brickell City Center, or, by the Brightline station over there is a big thing. People can work in downtown Miami and technically live in Fort Lauderdale. It's not that far.
Yeah, but we don't have the east-west component
yet. But I think they're trying.
And we don't have it going all the way to Homestead yet. And there's a lot of work to be done. But the reality is,
they have the foundations.
Yes,
they have this thing called the Smart Corridor, which means if you build on this corridor, there's incentives.
So what do you think about Live Local?
We love Live Local. We were involved in some things with Live Local, with the attorneys that we use, and we're actually building a project that would not be feasible if Live Local did not exist.
Right.
So it's really allowing, in a higher interest rate environment, to build, because if you're not building, and I'm not talking about building the higher end stuff, we're building stuff in Miami Gardens, for example. And they have young professionals, and they don't want the young professionals to move out of the neighborhood. They want a nice product in the neighborhood, and there's no reason why it shouldn't. So things like that, if you could utilize Live Local, banks are starting to understand it, because this is the third year now that they have it. HUD is starting to understand it. So you're probably another couple of years away where it's going to be streamlined, but we're at the stage right now where people are understanding what's going on. They're digesting. Before it was like, no way. But now they're getting it and they're willing to underwrite at some level to it.
Since you mentioned the public transportation corridor, when we were speaking to Mayor Cava, one of the interesting things we talked to her about was the need for municipal and county agreements around that. And she alluded to, if not stated pretty directly, that, sometimes deals got killed because you couldn't get the cities to play nice with the county, and ultimately
or the counties play nice with one another.
Right. Do you find, a question by extension, do you find that certain cities and towns are on the good list and some are on the bad list in terms of who I can get a deal done because they have adopted a philosophy of movement down this path or not, or you find it's more universally positive?
I think overall, today it's more universally positive than it was 5 years ago, but some cities would like to see development, maybe more density than other cities. Mm-hmm. There are cities out there, not to mention which ones, but they don't want to see any development. They're happy with the way things are. Then you have cities that maybe had that attitude. They don't want to have any changes, but people have moved in the neighborhood and they understand that, hey, if you want a better sewer system, if you want better water, if you want better infrastructure, the only way that you're going to do that is you got to provide, density and better services. Right. So, the cities that are allowing the density, they see the change for the positive. And I think, overall, I think eventually they'll get it, but there are some cities that they don't want to see anything, even single family housing.
Let me ask you a question about location. There was a time when Miami Beach is a hot market and Brickell is a hot market, and then Edgewater, hot market now, and now Little Haiti. What do you see as something that people are not, what location, whether it's Doral or whether it's some other location, do you think is the golden nugget that people aren't currently focused on, but it's going to be
he's never going to tell us what he really thinks, because
I was just about to say that.
That's like asking, that's like asking Mario Carbone what's in the rigatoni. He's never going to answer the question.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask it differently. Is it in Dade County, Broward County, or Palm Beach County?
So we are very concentrated in Dade County just because we understand it, we know it, but I happen to like Palm Beach a lot.
Because Palm Beach is getting a lot. We had the mayor of West
Keith
Palm
James,
Beach
had a great
on,
time
and
with him.
I was surprised at how much, not just related Ross downtown, West Palm Beach, but the entire county now is just really on fire.
I was in Palm Beach a couple of weeks ago, and I used to go to Palm Beach over the years. It's changed a lot, but you still have that feeling like when you walk on Worth Avenue, it's still that. It's much quieter than over here.
Right. I can tell you that the first time I went before a judge in West Palm Beach, I remember saying, what nice people. The lawyers are nice, the clerks are nice, the bailiffs are nice, the judges are unbelievable, the courthouse is gorgeous. And they're like, yeah, you people in Miami, when you come up here, we're like, they're just nice. Mm-hmm. It's like Midwestern people in a way. Right. It's a different crowd.
Right. Yeah. Disarming for people like us. Right.
Even the beach, you walk to the beach near Worth Avenue and it just looks different than Miami Beach. It's a totally different vibe over there. But it's definitely, you got Steve Ross and Ken Griffin that are promoting it, and Francis Suarez, I know, joined that board. Mm-hmm. He's promoting it. So it makes me smile to see that they're really promoting it the way that they are.
And they're pretty smart. Yeah. They're getting Vanderbilt University to come there.
Well, I was going to say their approach is tactically very different, because one of the things that Mayor James talked to us a lot about, both on and off the air, was, there's a little bit of a trickle down economic focus of saying, we got to build jobs, right? We want to keep growing. What we need to realize is that we need people to live here, get educated here, and work here. And so, whether it was talking to, big defense or tech contractors, that this idea of saying we got to create a critical mass, because one of the things that's obviously happened here is you don't necessarily have the residual jobs market sitting adjacent to these concentrations of development and development opportunity. And so they, to your point, David, they wind up having to be an hour and a half away and for all those things to come together in the same place. And it seems like Palm Beach, either whether by learning from us or simply by their own observations, are taking a little bit more of a smart build.
I think Broward and Palm Beach have seen many of the, I don't want to say mistakes, but issues and problems that have occurred in Miami-Dade County. And I think they're learning from it.
Yeah. Broward to me is still always a little bit, and I've said it before. I mean, I love Broward County. It's just always a little bit of a mystery to me because I can't quite put my finger on sort of its character and trajectory. It feels like Palm Beach is sort of like, your first cousin by marriage. Like, it's not like us, but it's kind of like us. Like you sort of see some of the patterns. Broward, I look at, both from a development perspective and a cultural perspective and say, I can't quite nail it yet.
And with the train, it makes it so easy also to get there these days. So it's
I was just in downtown Fort Lauderdale, 35 minutes on a drive. It was great. And I was like, I wish I did more here. I just can't quite. It just has a different pace and character to it altogether. I can't believe
you were able to make it in 35
It was actually, now granted,
was it 2 a.m?
No, it was actually just this morning. But
when I used to drive, if you would 10, 11 o'clock, you straight shot. It's not like that anymore.
No. I mean,
there's traffic every second.
It could be 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday.
It really reminds me of LA, LA traffic where, try going to Long Beach anytime between 7 in the morning and 7 at night from downtown LA or from the beach in LA.
Right.
And that is what is happening here.
So David, before we go to the rapid fire, and you're very excited, I can tell. My last question to you is 20-year-old David Burstyn walks into your office and wants to do what you've done. What advice are you giving him knowing what you do now?
I would tell him, get the best internships that you can get, and it does not make a difference what the pay is. You want to, whether it's a bank, developer, learn from the best. And, because I made mistakes along the way and when you make mistakes as a developer, it's hard. You could fall flat on your butt.
Right.
And not to say that that's not going to ever happen, because you got to get up and you keep walking. But I think when you learn from the best, I think that you're probably, and you're there for 5-10 years, and you get your own way, you're probably going to make less mistakes and you're going to do some of the things that they've done right. So it's going to make it that much easier. But that takes
time,
experience,
and a willingness to not try to cut corners. And I always focus on this. This current generation is always looking for the fast way because they see it on their phone every single day.
Right.
When you can make $1 billion because you have 50 million followers on Instagram,
right?
Who wants to take the hard route? I see that as a problem for this particular generation that we have in that age group.
I think that these days, the jobs are totally different now. Like when I was growing up, it was like be a doctor or a lawyer, right? And now I don't know if it's that simple. Be a doctor or a lawyer and you're automatically going to make...
I think it's be an influencer first.
Right. The Instagram following, 4 years ago, I'm like, Insta what? I would never,
let me tell you, 10 years ago, someone
said,
if you have 2 million followers, you're going to make $1 million a year. Right. I would have said, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
All right, it's time for rapid fire.
It's time for rapid fire. So David will ask one, I'll ask one. David's are totally unscripted. So again, be prepared to leave it on the cutting room floor. Sure. David, you're up first.
Favorite color?
Blue.
Mine too.
Best deal you ever passed on?
Best deal I ever passed on. Well, I have a deal that I actually bought and sold that I should have kept on North Bay Road. It was in the 30s and we made a quick buck. I was happy. I actually sold it to Todd Glazer, coincidentally. Within 90 days. So I did what we executed.
I know the lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because maybe you were exactly. And
I'm not saying anymore.
Yeah. That lot today has got to be worth, $30-40 million. And I think we sold it for like $6 million.
You've thought about it once or twice since.
Not all the time. I'm one of these guys where, I'm happy to make the money, you move on, and learn for the next time. But
right.
that if you just land bank that thing at like, even 10% a year, just
right.
It's crazy.
David?
Yep.
Favorite restaurant?
Favorite restaurant these days, I would say, is Daniel's. I'm friendly with Tom Angelo. I think it's very good. In Lauderdale, they have one in the Gables. And I happen to like Zizzi's also. So those are my top 2 these days.
Cold brew or cortadito?
That's a good question. Cold brew.
All right, David.
Well, that's like you because you're a cold brew guy.
I am a cold brew guy.
I want to ask you, because I get these from the politicians, they send these things on your phone and rate, what's the most important issue to you. If you had to rate these in order, how do you rate them? Affordability of housing, traffic congestion, and quality of life.
Those are three good ones. I would say, how do you rate those in order?
That's why I can't answer those things.
He's actually looking for advice. He's got a phone right now. He's trying to figure it out.
You get these things and they say rate it in order, and I'm like, those are the top. Like
top
that, and and sustainability, flood mitigation, stuff like. But how do you rate that? They're all
equal. They all kind of balance with each other,
and they all impact our real estate and living environment, South Florida.
Right. Quality of life, I think, is, we have quality of life down here, because everyone could just go to the beach.
Other than traffic congestion,
right?
Which affects your quality of life.
And then you have the affordability. So without the affordability, people can't work here, and then they can't provide services. That's it's a major problem. Quality of life could be a number of different things, but I think that, just listen, just going to the beach and walking barefoot on the beaches, some people would say this is a beautiful life. And traffic congestion, they just got to keep working on that problem, because maybe they can keep making dents, but I just don't see that problem going away.
Well, Jimmy Tate and I, we were talking with Jimmy Tate when we had him on, and we were talking about these the
drones.
These drone things that take you places.
Amazing.
I think that's going to really.
On the web. Listen, I've actually gotten approached already from a couple of real firms on it. It's pretty interesting.
I don't know if they're going to have like a drone bus.
Are you old enough to remember the Flintstones and the Great Gazoo? And how we would lift? That was a big one. Final question from me. Favorite shoe?
My favorite shoe?
Brand.
That's a good question. Am I supposed to say that on air?
Yeah, you're allowed to say it.
I like Laura Piana's these days.
All right,
Laura Piana's. I don't even know what that is.
Italian.
Yes, that I got. But
okay,
all right, I'm going to have to look it up.
All right, I've got one more for you. Money's no object. What's the one piece of South Florida dirt you'd buy tomorrow?
I would have to say Indian Creek.
It makes sense. And I'm going to throw a bonus one on, because this is just for me as a sports fan. Sammy Sosa in one word.
He likes to hit home runs a lot.
Listen, I remember that summer. I was sitting I was watching Sports
That's what
Center.
He said when he was being interviewed. I like it to hit home run a lot.
Can I just tell you something?
Yeah.
He had a great bat flip.
Oh, yeah.
He had a great bat flip.
He was great. Now, when he was hitting the home runs left and right, I was young, and for him, it was like he turned into like godly overnight. This guy, it's incredible.
That compact, powerful stroke was unbelievable. All right, we're gonna.
I just wanted to say thank you. Knowing your family,
thank you.
Knowing your father, knowing your history, I appreciate your coming on the show, and look forward to more great things from you in the future.
Thank you so much,
David Burstyn. Thanks for joining us. You're watching Sun, Sand, and Soul with Josh Tomey and David Haber.